Hamilton just had an entanglement. I mean, it was just one.
Multiple.
It was just,
I missed something.
What is
put out a whole pamphlet about it.
What's up, Internet World? We're the News 19 Nerds. I am Michael, joined by a huge cast of characters today, an ensemble of characters. Really appreciate everybody coming in. We'll kind of go down the line and just introduce ourselves. Lauren, go first.
Yeah, Lauren, one of the News 19 Nerds, loving this whole experience. We're about to talk about Hamilton, so I'm pretty excited about that.
All right, Alicia.
Hi there, I'm Alicia. Occasionally make a cameo on the News 19 Nerds. Love musical theater. Actually, last night when I rewatched Hamilton again, it unlocked the memory that at one point in time, I played Abigail Adams in a middle school theater production. Good stuff.
Unlocking memories. Fantastic. All right, we'll keep going down the road. Whitney, go ahead.
Hey, my name is Whitney, as Michael just said. So I pop into the News 19 Nerds every once in a while. I'm really just their biggest fan, is what everybody needs to know. Musical theater background. So I am a huge musical theater nerd. In high school, I was actually in a magnet program for musical theater. So, you know, I loved Hamilton. But a fun fact about me, in second grade, I played Sandy in our elementary school production of Grease. One of the best experiences of my life, y'all. So good.
Awesome.
Anna Grace.
Hello, I'm Anna Grace. I guess I'm a nerd-ish, kind of. I pop in every now and then.
Everybody can be a nerd.
I'm a nerd. So my musical theater background, I did like theater camp for like most of my life until like high school, I guess. They had like a little theater camp in my Belton's a pretty small town, so we had like just like it was like 7 of us usually trying to do something. And then I did drama in high school. But fun fact, one of my very first leading roles, I played Beast in Beauty and the Beast. Because I was the tallest and had the deepest voice at the time, because I was like 13 and everyone else was younger than me. So I was like, I'm going to play the Beast, I guess.
That's cool. Musical theater, I mean, love is love. It's all good.
Yeah.
Mary and Sean, you are our newest people right now to the News 19 Nerds. Tell us about yourself a little bit.
I'm Mary.
I'm Sean.
This is my first time being on the Nerds, although I love all the segments, but I just also love Hamilton so much that I decided to actually do a segment for the first time once Michael asked. And just theater background, I don't really have any. I love just theater in general if it's good theater. The first I ever saw was Wicked, so that was like pretty cool to see that one, and then it just kind of went from there. So
I have not seen a lot of musicals, but I have seen the Nutcracker probably 5 times. So
That counts.
That counts.
So you know, that's,
Okay.
That's what I
And
got.
of course, last but not least, we got Brandon Taylor. Brandon, tell us about yourself, man.
Yeah, Brandon Taylor. This is my first time being a part of the News 19 Nerds. Excited about it. Musical theater. At a young age, my aunt lives in New Jersey, and so going up for Christmas, we would go and see Broadway plays all the time. So the first Broadway play I ever saw was Cats, and from Cats saw Beauty and the Beast, Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk, Wicked, The Lion King. So many being exposed to it, and then being a young actor myself when I was in middle school in Newsies at Nursery Road, and then at Irmo Middle School, give it up. So Hamilton was just everything I've ever wanted, didn't know I want, and saw it live. So this is just a wonderful experience. It's a great production, so I'm excited about this conversation.
Okay, so we're gonna dig in a little bit deeper into our Hamilton experience over musical theater, but Lauren, you didn't necessarily tell us about your musical background and stuff overall.
Yeah, I forgot we're supposed to do that. My bad. So yeah, I've been a musical theater nerd from birth. I mean, the first experience I had with musicals was definitely The Wiz, and that was the DVD or the VHS version, of course. But from The Wiz to Jesus Christ Superstar, which is literally one of my favorites, to seeing my first Broadway play was Wicked, and then kind of went to The Color Purple was next. I still haven't seen The Lion King, which I need to see that. I just don't know what happened with that. But musicals have been in my life, like in my blood since birth. was part of show choir in high school, and so we did the most. And yeah, I love it.
Okay. Alicia, you gave us your right because you told us about the play you were in, right?
Yes.
Alicia, okay. For me, I've always enjoyed musical theater, love it a lot. I got to see Phantom of the Opera on Broadway in high school. That was really cool. As part of a marching band, we went up there for a parade. Probably my favorite musical is Seven Brothers for Seven Brides. Love that.
Yes!
Great musical. I think musical theater is a great form of entertainment, of expressing yourself and expressing these ideas in a way that everybody can join in, which is great. So yeah, love it a lot. So let's get into talking about the first part of Hamilton, just in terms of, is this your first time seeing Hamilton? Did you listen to the soundtrack? All that kind of stuff. Let's start with Anna Grace.
So I listened to the soundtrack when it came out, and I guess I would listen to it when I was driving back and forth from home to college, and I was just like screaming in my car, because I already sing all the time anyways, so my life is kind of a musical, just sing like all the words. And then I was supposed to go see it when was I supposed to go see it? I think I was supposed to go see it in April, and then moved it to October, and then they were like, we're moving to 2021 because Rona. So I'm very sad about that. But me and my family, we all sat down and watched it last weekend, and I cried like 4 times. It was the best thing ever, and I love it so much. It's amazing. It's
Okay.
amazing.
Whitney.
Yes. So my first experience with Hamilton actually is when it came out on Disney Plus. And so I made sure that I sat down and I had everything together. I had my snacks, I had my mom, and we were ready to watch. And there was a lot of hype surrounding Hamilton. There has been for years. And so honestly, it made me a little apprehensive, because sometimes things will get super hyped up and then you watch it and you're like, I mean, it was cool. However, that was not the case. Actually, I don't even know if Hamilton got all of the praises that it deserved, because it was so amazing, so much so that I watched it again literally less than 24 hours later, and that's not typically something I do. But since I've seen it, I've watched it multiple times, and I've also downloaded the soundtrack, and I even work out to it. So yeah, I absolutely love it.
Okay, so go back to that for a second. What's your like hype, your pump mix as you're hitting that crest in your workout? Like, what song are you listening to and you're like, yeah, this is it?
Oh, I mean, it just depends on how I'm feeling. It might be a little bit of soca. It might be a little bit of hip hop. So I need something.
No, Whitney. No, sorry. I'm asking in terms of the Hamilton soundtrack.
Yeah,
what song are you?
Like, oh,
To learn a lot about Whitney
rap.
today. But so for me, the 2 songs, Shot and Satisfied, those get me just going. I'm ready to go. And so I actually ran to both those songs yesterday.
Okay. Brandon?
So I was exposed to Hamilton when I lived in Madison, Wisconsin. One of my coworkers at the time was like, hey, this is a great production. The traveling Broadway shows, when I worked in Madison, they would give the anchors and the people at the television shows, television stations, tickets to all of the Broadway shows that came into town. So she knew that I loved musicals. And so she was like, you need to download this soundtrack. And so I was like, okay, I'll download it. And so I had the soundtrack for a good year and a half, just listening to it, trying to find a way to get to New York, or get to Chicago. But ticket prices were so expensive when Hamilton first came out. Like, one ticket was $335. So I was like, I can't afford that. So I just listened to the album. And so then I guess it was last year, they had the traveling production that came to Greenville. And so I took my mom for Christmas, and the tickets were a little more reasonable. And it was just an experience, because you can listen to the soundtrack, but then when you actually see it, it's a whole totally different experience. You're like, oh, wait a minute. That's what that is. Oh, that's what that scene is. And then watching the Disney production multiple times on Disney Plus, I mean, every time you see it, there's something new. There's something new about the production and the musical. So yeah, I'm a fan for life. I'm a Hamilton fan for life. And I'm not normally like that. Like, The Lion King was good. I talked about that for a while. What was it? Kinky Boots was cool. That was good for a while. I loved, what was the Book of Mormon? Loved that one. Another good one. But Hamilton is just something that you talk about over and over again. And you tell all of your friends, you're like, hey, you got to go check this out. This is pretty good.
Mary and Sean?
So ours is a little similar to everybody's. I have been listening to the soundtrack for like a year and a half because someone introduced it. And I was like, well, this is the only way I'm going to be able to see it right now because I can't afford it. So I might as well just listen to the soundtrack. Just like Anna Grace, Alicia and I were actually supposed to go see it in Atlanta for her birthday in April. And it got postponed. So that was super devastating. And also, like Whitney, I listened to it at the gym also. My song is Wait For It because by the one that Aaron Burr sings, because it's so good. But so a little bit of everything. And then just seeing the actual movie on Disney Plus was, like Brandon said, like it put things in places that I thought I understood what was going on, but then I saw it and I'm like, oh my God. So I just really, that was my Hamilton journey.
Yeah, mine's obviously similar. We listened to it together, but like watching it, those details that you don't get just listening to the soundtrack really like come out, and it brings the whole musical together. And the production is just, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So.
Alicia?
Well, I attempted at one point right before Hamilton just took off, right? My mom and my brother happened to get tickets on Broadway. So they made the trip. Well, my brother was at NYU, so my mom goes, she tries to get me a ticket. It was like $1,300 just for one ticket. And of course, that's with the original cast on Broadway. So you're kind of like, people will pay that, but I could not. So I missed that part, but my mom will always say, oh, we saw Hamilton with the original cast, but they sat above the chandelier, but they said it was fine. So just like everybody else, I waited for Disney Plus. I've been wanting to see it for so long, and it's like I couldn't stop, like I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. I saw it with Mary, and it was just, I feel like it just redefines Broadway. I immediately wanted to see it again. It's the kind of thing that I watched that I know I will pick up on something else the next time and something else the following time. So I hope to see it in person, just like Anna Grace and Mary, when we can finally get back in the theaters next year, hopefully.
And Lauren?
Yeah, and that's the thing, like with Alicia saying it redefines Broadway, it does. I feel like, because there's so many Broadway plays that flop, right? I think the Spider-Man wasn't.
Spider-Man Into the Dark, that didn't do anything.
There was Wonderland, A New Alice, which I saw on Broadway, and it great music, but it just did not take off, right? But it was just such a different concept, just a different, I don't know who thinks about doing a story about Alexander Hamilton, just random, and then rapping to it, and then just the diversity involved. It was insane. So I was like, I don't even know how to approach this. I heard the soundtrack, of course, before I saw it, which was my first experience was with Disney Plus. But the soundtrack, I was like, okay, I'm gonna see this eventually, so I'm not going to listen to it right now. For real. Because normally when I listen to an album, I listen to it multiple times and it just keeps, on repeat. But I listened to it one time through and I was like, okay, cool. I like this. I want to see it. And so when Disney Plus said, hey, we're going to give you guys Hamilton, I was like, all right, let me know when. I'm there. So I will say that when you're watching it on a TV screen, of course, it's different than being there and being in that energy, being in that space of a Broadway theater, because Broadway, if you don't know anything about Broadway theaters, they're very intimate, even though they're big. Some of them can be large, but the way that they have them spaced out and the way that it's created, it just feels like whatever seat you're in is great, And so that experience I wish I had, but I enjoyed Disney Plus giving us this little bit that they gave us.
Okay. For me, I'd been listening to the Hamilton soundtrack for years, just on repeat. I had been a fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda since he did the play In the Heights, which, as he has said, is probably the real version of West Side Story, because it actually features people that are Latinx, not just white people pretending to be that. So he was happy to do that.
I like West Side Story though, but yeah.
I mean, West Side Story is cool, but it's a bunch of white people pretending, whatever. Another story, but yeah. So I've been a fan of his In the Heights, and even before that, he was in like a hip hop comedy improv group called Freestyle Love Supreme, which they used to do stuff on MTV long time ago. And I'd kind of forgotten about that until Hamilton came back and was like, oh yeah, this is, really good stuff. But yeah, listen to the soundtrack forever. The first time I tried to watch Hamilton, or on Disney Plus, I watched it at my sister's house for the 4th of July. And she had told me that she was really excited to see the musical, but she didn't realize that it was a musical when it started. And so she wasn't ready for everything to be singing the entire time. She thought it was going to be like spurts of talking. And so her and everyone else didn't necessarily pay attention to Hamilton as it was happening. So it wasn't a great experience for me to watch it the first time. Oh, what is this? Oh, running out of time. They removed the time limit, guys. That's fantastic. So that's a little behind the scenes. So we can keep going. It's wonderful. But yeah, so I watched it again at my house in surround sound and loved it. Great. And I think I told Lauren this, I might have told Alicia, but when you're listening to the soundtrack all the time, you kind of forget that they're recording it in a studio where everything's perfect and the acoustics are great. So when I first heard it on Disney Plus, it's like, this doesn't sound the same. Then I had to remember, oh yeah, this is a perfect setting for the soundtrack. So once I was able to adjust to that and really watch their faces and their expressions as they're emoting these songs, I was like, yeah, this is great. So that's it. So now let's just get into kind of a free-for-all. What do we think of the experience of Hamilton, of just bringing it to the stage? The big question I have is, this is obviously a taped version of a stage play and not a film. So you are really getting the raw deal of seeing it on a stage as opposed to it being a film with certain cuts and edits and stuff like that. So I'll open it up to Brandon, starting with you. What do you think of this being like a taped version of a stage play versus a traditional film?
I think it's a gift. I think it was an absolute gift, because I think this is the vision Lin-Manuel had when he created Hamilton, when he was writing it. So I don't think it would have, transpired, or it would have been the same if it was a cinema film version of it. And I think it came out at the perfect time, as Alicia and Mary and Lauren all alluded to, at a time when we can't go to the theater and you can't have that intimate experience of being in the theater with the music and the acting. This was the perfect gift at the perfect time, because you can rewatch it over and over again, and you can bring that intimate experience into your home. So yeah, we have theater every night over here.
Yeah. Anybody, go ahead.
That's great. Yeah.
For me, it was like a little nostalgic, because I was a band nerd growing up, and we would, like, our teacher would make us watch Stomp like 1,000 times. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but like, it's basically like a Broadway production that is taped, and we watch it every time she was not there, right? So it felt familiar to me, but way better, like way better. And I really enjoyed it, because it kind of like brought that memory back to me. And like the production of it was just beautiful. I loved it.
And also what I thought was cool, and I've heard criticisms against this too, of like when you watch it in the theater, you can watch everybody at the same time, and you can see that nobody gets out of character. Everybody stays in character. It's an amazing thing to see across the entire stage. But what I really liked is the close-ups of the faces, the facial expressions, those things that you wouldn't necessarily get if you're in the theater sitting above the chandeliers. Like, those were very special. Like, even when the king spit, when he was singing and he spit, that's such a moment, but
He
something
was in
that it needs to happen when you're
Yeah.
singing. So, those things were very special, and I really appreciated that stuff. And I think that the cuts too were perfect. I don't think that the way that they edited it took away from anything. I think that it put you on focus on the right person, the right time, and I was really impressed overall with the production of it.
Because sometimes when you're in a theater and say, the performers are over here, they're this way, but I got to add a bench to this side, and even though it's dark, I can still see that person at a bench or something. So it was cool to kind of not have to see that. Like I'm that person that looks at that kind of stuff like, all right. But I really did enjoy the cuts, and yeah, Jonathan Groff was great as King George, and just impressions, everything was just amazing.
I love that man so much.
Yeah, he's great, and it just, even though, because I've seen like, take The Wiz for instance. My experience with The Wiz was a movie. Even though it was a musical, it was a movie version of the musical. But when you see it on stage, you're like, oh, it kind of takes away. Like when they did Fox that did the
The live version.
The live action.
I
don't like those
anyways. The live version, and I'm just like, I love it. I still loved all of it, but it was different from having that element, like the movie magic that they add on there. But it's more raw, right? It's real, and you're seeing these people on stage, like Michael said, breathing, choreo, and they're also giving you vocals. So it's just like, y'all are great. Y'all are amazing.
Yes, I completely agree with everything that y'all are saying. And as a theater nerd, and I forgot to say this too, my minor is actually in theater. I went to Clemson and theater is my minor. And so I think growing up in theater, people who are not immersed in that culture, in that form of entertainment, may have like a idea of what they think musical theater is, or they may think that it might be, I don't know, boring or like opera-like singing. I've heard that a lot. However, yeah, exactly. And opera is beautiful, right? But they might have this negative mindset or not really know a lot about what theater is. And so I'm so grateful that he did not make this a film, because not only does this introduce musical theater to people who have never been able to experience this, but it also allows us to really get the integrity of what he created. It allows us to appreciate this form of entertainment, this form of art. It allows us to appreciate the artist and what they are able to bring to a stage in a live performance, because there is no cut, let's run it back. You got one shot and you got to make it happen. And so I'm so grateful that this is not a film, because so many people's eyes are going to be open to a new type of art. And I think it creates a new appreciation for musical theater. And I also think that maybe young boys and girls are going to be able to really decide that this is something that they want to explore because they saw this. And so if it was just a movie, it wouldn't allow them to be introduced to this type of art. And so I think they're going to be young boys and girls who are going to be like, you know what, I want to try out theater. I want to express myself in this way. And so I am so grateful that it is not a movie or a film. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think just like having the opportunity for kids to watch it. Like there was that, I don't know if y'all seen that video, it's like circulating the internet, of a little girl being like, she looks like me, mommy. Like she looks beautiful. And I'm like, that is so special. That's awesome. Because I think it's so important to see the diversity just in the cast in general. And then kind of like switching gears. I think this is something my sister brought up. I think a lot of times people can think like Aaron Burr is like the bad guy. He's the villain in the show. But just watching Leslie Odom Jr., just watching him emote and like do everything he did, like I was like, and like just like I don't know, seeing his face and then hearing the song, I was like, this guy's just like trying his best like to hold it together and to wait for his his opportunity. And like one time he not loses control, but like it's like, you know what, whatever, I'm gonna go duel this guy, like, and then it's like one thing, history can make one decision makes you like the bad guy in history. But I just think it changed my perspective completely on the characters in general. And like we don't know Hamilton like kind of like a dirtbag. Like he wasn't a great dude, but like he was also amazing at the same time. Do you know what I mean? I was like, you cheat on your wife, like that sucks. But like also like you're amazing, And like Aaron Burr killed him, but like also he was just like a really cool dude who like was just like trying his best. So I don't know. I just think that was cool. And like I think it's interesting to like how it changed my perspective from just listening to it to watching it. But yeah.
Hamilton just had an entanglement. I mean, it was just one.
Multiple.
It was just,
What is that? I missed something.
What is that? A whole pamphlet about it. Ridiculous.
I don't know what that is. I think I missed something.
Girl, you need to watch the Red Table Talk.
Okay, that's what.
I really don't.
Yeah, Jada talking about some stuff.
I'm glad that Will caught her out on what is an entanglement.
Yeah.
That is the new word for 2020.
Is that's your word
Anytime
for
I get in a sketchy situation, which I hope doesn't happen, it's
an entanglement.
Entanglement.
Is that what Jada called it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys, as we were doing this last round of conversation, you guys brought up two things. Somebody talked about diversity for a second, and then, what was the other thing? Well, let's start with diversity. We know, I mean, there's a lot of different accolades that can be thrown at this, but this is like a predominantly POC cast. I think, is it pretty much King George and maybe Samuel Seabury?
And the farmer.
Samuel Seabury are the only two white people in it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is an immigrant, as it were. And I think that's a really big topic. Leslie Odom did an interview where he said the first time he saw this the first time he knew Leslie Odom, of course, plays Aaron Burr. The first time he saw Hamilton was when it was still a mixtape, and he saw the Story of Tonight. And he said it really touched him because it was for people of color, not singing about the ghetto or singing about drugs or singing about anything. They were singing about something positive and just a story of friendship and brotherly love. And he said that touched him, and that motivated him to do the play after he saw the mixtape version of that. So I kind of just, again, want to just go back to that and just talk about the diversity overall. And we have a predominantly POC cast here. Sean, our lone white person. Thank you for being here, for giving us diversity in this version. So actually, Sean, I do want to start with you. What does that mean to you? What did you think of the cast overall?
I thought it was amazing. Everybody did a great job. And what really was awesome to me is how historically accurate it was. And everybody played their role the way these people played their roles, actually in history, It was just great to see. It was great to see something different, where it's just not like this standard, this is what you think of when you see Broadway. It was, this is going to be the new Broadway. This is going to be the future of musical theater. And I really, really enjoyed it, honestly. I think King George is basically the lone white guy, pretty much, was the whitest he could be.
And not portrayed, and really important, he wasn't portrayed as a hero.
Yeah.
He's the imperialist king. He's kind of portrayed as a very narcissistic moron.
Yeah.
And that's so important for the history of just history in general, not only for this production, but the history. This guy was an imperialist moron. They need to portray him as that, not as someone to be revered.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
No, yeah, the diversity really blew me away because I looking at the cast, you're just like, what if Thomas Jefferson was black, or which
historically
color
could be true.
Could be true. We don't know. The one drop rule still exists. But we don't want to get into that. But but I just found it so funny, because TJ, because I lived in Charlottesville for a couple years, and Thomas Jefferson was whoa. And going to Monticello and seeing, his house and the plantation and everything and all the different inventions and a lot of stuff that he took from other countries and other community, different cultures. There we go.
Appropriation,
he appropriated a lot of stuff to make the USA, which I find really interesting. But so there was a love-hate relationship with Thomas Jefferson for me, because I still find him a very interesting man, and a very I appreciate what he did for the country. But I'm also you and Sally, that happened, and y'all need to acknowledge that.
They had that entanglement. Yeah,
they had that entanglement.
That's what it was.
And he didn't free her at the end. He didn't free her. He freed their kids, but not her. Anyway, that's a whole nother. But I thought it was funny to see, Daveed Diggs as Thomas Jefferson. I really enjoyed him, and it made me think that might be how he was. A little bit of I'm from Virginia, and I went to France, and I've traveled the world, and I'm gonna come back and stun on all y'all. And I could definitely see TJ like that. That's why I call him TJ.
That was his reputation. I believe that was out. He was considered very flamboyant, super French, stuck up, definitely thought he was above everybody else.
Spent all his money on wine.
Was in a lot of debt. I can go on forever.
Right. Dang.
He was in a lot of debt.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No. If you want to talk about this, go ahead.
Oh yeah,
anything,
just speaking on the diversity aspect, especially with everything that is happening in our society right now, I think that this production could not have come at a better time. It is so refreshing to see so many people of color on one stage just thriving in their gifting. And for me, like being a part of theater, there aren't that many productions where you get to see people of color in a leading role. Like, I think I can name the 3 that I've only seen. I saw The Lion King on Broadway. I saw the off-Broadway production of The Color Purple, and then you have The Wiz. But outside of that, seeing people of color in those leading roles, and not just it being one person, but multiple people of color, it was so beautiful and it was so refreshing, and it is so necessary because representation matters. And like I was talking about earlier with these young kids seeing this and being like, oh my goodness, musical theater is amazing. It's something I want to be a part of. I think that this also opened the eyes and doors really for young brown and black girls and boys who can say, you know what, this is a place where I can have opportunities and thrive. And so I am just so grateful that Lin-Manuel Miranda reimagined history the way in which he did, because while this was kind of like a history lesson, I think that he definitely made history, not just for everybody in the country, but specifically for people of color. And so even if it wasn't the greatest, which we all know it is amazing, I was still rooting for it because, I'm just so happy to see people who look like me, people who look like my dad, people who look like my niece on stage just killing it.
Well, and think about it from a
sorry, go ahead.
From a historical aspect of it. I mean, as a young African American man or boy to watch this production and be, wait a minute, George Washington is black. George Washington is black. That's possible. And then to 4 years ago, at the time when this production was taped, to have the 44th president of the United States be an African American man. I mean, I think this production, when it was filmed, was such a season of hope, because you remember what that moment in time felt like as a young person, to see such a diverse cast and be like, you know what? Okay, I can be an actor if I want to. I can be an actress, or I can be a politician. I can be a change maker. I can do something to change the revolution of my country or my future.
Also, I just want to say, way to prove society's standards wrong, right? Because if he were to pitch this to anybody, they'd be like, no, you need a white cast. This is an American history story. And you're going to tell it with rap and hip hop and jazz music. That's not going to work. Well, he said, we're going to do it anyways. And look at it, it works. So what we think are society's standards that we should follow, we shouldn't, because people are going to be entertained by things that are entertaining, period. It doesn't matter who's in it or how you do it. If you do it well and they do the job right, that's what's important.
Yep. I think
go ahead, Alicia.
Everyone said what's on my mind. And the last thing I'll just add is it again redefines Broadway to me and shapes the way we are thinking forward. I feel like this production will shape the way future creators, future directors write their theater productions. And it shows that America wants to see this. This is a refreshing take on something people have loved for many years. And I feel like going forward, we're going to see more of this innovation and maybe, I don't know how else to put it, like an unconventional way of telling a story so many of us know, but in a, like reimagined. And that's what people want to see.
Mary, you brought up a interesting point before we started to record the recording in terms of this date in history. Tell us about what you were talking about before.
Today is the anniversary of the famous Hamilton Burr Duel that happened on July 11th, 1804. So that's quite serendipitous.
Yeah, and I bring that up, or I'm glad Mary brought that up, because let's talk a little bit about the history and the facts we were talking about how this show kind of gets a lot of stuff right, but it also gets some stuff wrong. I mean, for one, Philip Schuyler had probably like dozens of kids. He not just the three girls.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of kids. Also, Hamilton, of course, didn't necessarily know Hercules Mulligan at that when in the time frame that they put. He might not have known Hercules Mulligan when they would have met at that time. But it takes a couple liberties with history. Are we okay with that for them to tell the story, or do we think that they took too many liberties? Just kind of you guys go off and let me know about that.
I mean,
I am. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yep. Lauren's gonna say exactly. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying it's still art. I feel like, you know, as you can be a history buff and a history nerd and still enjoy this and enjoy, you know, the way they put it together. Like I always think about what Jesus Christ Superstar. They got a lot of stuff wrong, but I love that musical. Like I still love it. But you know, do it. You know, but I don't think there's a problem with that. They can take liberties with. I mean, they already took liberties with the cast, so why not take liberties with the timeline if need be?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I agree. I think even though like I think it'd be a cool thing to be like in history class if I was a history teacher, like to watch this and like compare it to like actual like the the facts. I don't think it has to be factual. I mean it's like 95% I'd say factual. So I think the other 5% is fine because it's like I said, an artist taking liberties, and I think it made it cooler. So I liked it.
I think there's also like a lot of practical reasons why they have to take the liberties that they do, and that's timing. That's if they really stuck to history as it was and portrayed it as a nonfiction piece, that would be a very long play. But practically, they're trying to sell tickets to a Broadway show. They needed to be within the confines of 2.5 hours. So yeah, I'm like totally fine with it. It's art. It's beautiful. And for me, what's most important is that if it inspires people to be interested in this history so that they pursue it more and for themselves want to learn more about it, totally fine with it, because then they'll learn what the parts that were kind of incorrect were and all that on their own. So I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, and I actually recently heard an interview or watched an interview with Lin-Manuel, and he was like saying, like for instance with Peggy Schuyler, people were like, "What happened to her?" And like I think she died like a really young age, and he's like, "Listen, if you didn't make it past second act, like you ain't gonna make it. Like we got to keep going. We only have like 2 hours to get this thing done." He's like, "We didn't have enough time to fit everything in there, so." Like you said, Mary, like just go look it up. Like what happened to Peggy Schuyler? He said that's what the internet's for. Just go Google it.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
yeah.
And I bring up the history question not as, to like antagonize anybody, but just to get both sides of people who are saying, this isn't enough history or whatever. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, he originally got the idea for doing the mixtape and the stage play from reading the biography from Ron Chernow. And he worked with that guy, and Ron gave him the blessing he is considered the best biographer of Alexander Hamilton in the book that he wrote. And he said he enjoyed the play and the liberties that Lin-Manuel took. So, if he's okay with it, I think everybody should be okay with it. Just trying to get that idea out there. So, I mean, overall, guys, just let me know, like, what's your favorite parts of Hamilton?
I didn't think this was going to be my favorite part because I had heard the soundtrack and I thought that another part was going to be my favorite, but my favorite really was the end because of the way that it ended. Like, I didn't expect, just listening to the soundtrack, I didn't know that was going to be and I didn't think I was going to cry. I really didn't. But I found myself in tears, and I just was astonished by the end part where we hear that Eliza is the one telling the story, which we knew from the soundtrack, but her face, everything, it was, for me, that was the end. It really drove it home, how important it is that someone tells your story.
Whitney?
I would say,
anybody? Go ahead.
yeah, I would say like that opener. I love a good opener. I love a good opening song and production. I just love that because it sucks you in, right? It just gets you on the edge of your seat. And I feel like that the beginning really brought me in because I was like, okay, what were we about to get with this? Because I had heard the soundtrack, but had no idea what the stage was going to look like and what how they were going to be moving, and it was just, I just enjoyed the beginning and definitely Not Gonna Miss My Shot is my favorite.
Oh, so good, so good. This is a difficult question because I feel like everything is great. That's like, I just know it's a cop-out answer, but everything is great. I will say that probably two of my I don't even want to say my favorite because I love so many other things, but I will say Satisfied, Renee Elise Goldsberry. Oh my goodness. I mean, she just is insanely talented, and the way, like, her performance was flawless. Because also what I loved about it is not only her performance, the way in which they choreographed and staged the scene. They used the ensemble to physically show them rewinding back in time. Like, that is insane to me. Also, Helpless was so great. I mean, she was doing so many different things at once while still singing. Like, these women are doing multiple things. They're acting, they're moving, they're rapping, they're doing all these things at once. And then also, I do have to say this. We have to give, and I don't know who did the lighting, and that's my fault. I should have did more research, but the lighting was amazing. So, and that's such an intricate part of theater because the lighting helps tell the story. And whoever was over lighting, and my apologies for not researching this more, did a phenomenal job, an absolutely phenomenal job. So I love the lighting. Also the ensemble, because I think a lot of times in theater, you'll see an ensemble cast, and sometimes, you know, they might not get enough love. You know, they're working just as hard. They might not get enough love, but this ensemble never like faded in the background. Like, they were amazing. Every single person a part of that ensemble deserves just as much praise as your main characters. So
Whitney,
yeah.
before you finish, I don't want to cut you off for a second, but I do want to go back to that ensemble thing because I looked her up. I wanted to shout out the person who like does the trajectory of the bullet as they're shooting.
Andrea?
Ariana DeBois.
Ariana
I think. Yeah, that, because when you're listening to it in the form of like the soundtrack, right? You don't necessarily put how everything works together. Like, oh, this is where this goes to this. This is how this scene moves to that. And it's cool because you hear the bullet if you listen to the soundtrack, you hear the bullet, but you don't necessarily visualize it. But to see her moving the bullet and so slowly around through everything, it was done beautifully. So yeah, I just want to give her a shout out.
So did y'all know, and I don't know if this is true, but I went down the Hamilton black hole, and apparently this might be true, it might not be, but there were people saying that she actually represents the omen of death. And that, is that correct? Because then they have,
I believe so.
Now they have receipts, and every scene that she was in, like, every time she appeared or interacted with a character closely or intimately, that character then died.
I can see that. Yeah.
Mary, tell them about the end. Mary saw something on Twitter. Tell them about.
Okay, yeah, because Twitter is also the black hole for this. Someone posted the end because I didn't understand Eliza's gasp at the end. I thought it was a gasping, like she's at the end of her rope, like, you know, Hamilton just died, or her son, all of that stuff, and I kind of associated it with that. But then someone explained, because I also just chalked up Lin-Manuel walking with her as just, you know, oh, it's the ghost of Hamilton or something. But apparently one of the interpretations of that ending could be that Lin-Manuel breaks the fourth wall and breaks it with her and for her. And she's singing the beautiful Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story. And he walks her to the front of the stage. This is the fourth wall has been broken. He walks her to the front of the stage and he says, look, I've told your story. And that's why she gasps, because she sees the audience, which just, you know, further pushes the idea that it's important that this is actually a play with an audience, because you need the audience's reaction for a lot of stuff. So I thought that was a really interesting interpretation of what her gasp at the end meant. And of course you can break this down into so many different ways, but it just made it even more present. I don't know. It just made it really cool.
I love that theory. Like, that's my favorite one.
Yeah, right?
So people are like, oh, she's in heaven, or she's singing Hamilton and her son, but like, that is so cool. I was bawling at that point.
Oh
like, that was, oh my gosh.
Didn't expect that at all.
Also, like, not even to get too deep, but that really had me thinking, who's gonna tell my story?
Right.
Done.
As it
And I think
should.
like Mary said, and Whitney and so many of us, that was my favorite song at first. But then since I've been watching it on Disney Plus, I think my new favorite song is now In the Room Where It Happens. And I think I'm scared to say this, but I feel like I identify with Aaron Burr a little bit, where you so badly want to be at the table, you want a seat at the table, you want to know the conversations that are happening. But so often we're not allowed in the room. People are making decisions. Y'all know people are making decisions who necessarily don't understand what the body, what the community is saying and thinking. So now every time I hear that song, and when I had downloaded the soundtrack, that was always a song that I skipped over. I never really listened to it. And so then now it's my favorite song.
You talked about skipping over stuff, because when I was listening to the soundtrack, I always enjoyed the first half more than the second half. I always felt like it kept building and building and building into that final song, where you kind of get a little snippet of all the themes that we've heard so far into this big cacophonous sound of awesomeness. And I always enjoyed the first half more than the second half, because the second half is more grown up in terms of like the stuff that everybody's dealing with. And I don't want to pretend like I came up with that theory, but I agree with that. Whoever did come up, wherever heard that from, but they're dealing with more grown up and more mature themes in terms of adultery, in terms of trying to grow this country, in terms of all this kind of stuff. But watching the stage play, I think I do enjoy the second half more, because it definitely does have my favorite song, the one sung by George Washington, Christopher Jackson.
Yes.
And what's it? Oh, I can't even.
Is it
History,
One More
History
Time?
Has Its Eyes on You. Is
No,
that
one,
it?
one more time.
One last time.
One last time.
Last time.
Oh, about him writing.
That's
his
great.
thing.
Yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, it's funny to how you have this idea in your head of how you're going to enjoy the play, just based on hearing the audio version, but seeing it with the visuals, it definitely changes that. So it changed my perspective on which half I like more. So, anything anybody else want to talk about, or anything that we didn't discuss? You want to just say something about Hamilton, or what's up?
I will. So
Yes.
no, really quickly. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but I found myself slightly obsessing over the characters, the actual people, right? So, for example, John Lawrence. I really didn't remember learning about him much in school, if at all. I really don't remember hearing his name. Maybe it was a brief mention for the whole Aaron Burr, Alexander Hamilton duel, right? But I was reading up on him last night, and I thought it was so interesting. They did mention this in the play, how he heavily criticized slavery, and he was trying to put together those 3,000 the 3,000 member brigade of slaves, and if they did fight for the U.S., they would be freed. And then, of course, South Carolina said, nope, can't do it, right? And he was from here, right? Well, I was reading up on him because I was just really interested in his story. And Alexander Hamilton's son, one of his sons, wrote his biography and read about how dear John Lawrence was to his father, that he named his child Lawrence Hamilton, and so did future generations of the Hamilton family. And I thought that was really cool. And you only see so much of him in the play, but I don't know about you guys obsessing over anyone else, but I've been reading about him.
And another fun fact, Lawrence County in South Carolina is named after Henry Lawrence, John Lawrence's father. Because I actually looked that up. I was like, is it named after John Lawrence because he died near Beaumont? But it's named after his father, Henry Lawrence, who didn't have the same stance on the enslaved as John Lawrence. Really interesting.
Not
His
many
father
people
was
did.
a slave.
Yeah.
Not down here. But this is great. But I think that's one thing that's really brilliant about this the stage play is that you can go and research and figure out more about these real people who they're portraying on stage versus it being like made up characters, or because sometimes you'll have historical fiction and you'll have a character that isn't real, that kind of adds something to the storyline. But I just like the way that they used everybody and told their story. And why not rap about it? I mean,
And I think it is like it's almost like necessary to go back and maybe research because I mean I think there's been some like especially when it came out on Disney Plus there's been like heavy criticism like oh well y'all talk about so and so having slaves but like what about George Washington and his teeth and everything like that and it's like
I was thinking about that the whole time. Real
and
talk.
like and I don't know and I think also like the people asked like Lin-Manuel Miranda about it. He was like no it's important. He said this was created by a human who's imperfect. So, like, we can't expect it to be – it's obviously not historically completely accurate. So, it's like it's not going to be perfect like that. And I think it is important to have those conversations and say, sure, we – like, you know, George Washington was a great guy, but he also, like, had slaves, and so did most of the other characters. So, it's like not – I don't think it was, like, him, like, you know, saying that's not important. I just think it's – you know, that's just how it was. And
I think it's more of an ideal, right? He was saying
right.
like the country, even though, you know, it's hundreds of years old, it's still growing, you know, hopefully it doesn't implode. So, I mean, it's a country that continues to grow and learn. So even as he wrote this play or, you know, the stage play, he was saying it's a story of America then told by America now, right? That's the thing that I've heard a lot of the Hamilton cast say. So it continues to grow and evolve. So I think it's kind of a lesson to us to be like, we can't be complacent where we are because they weren't complacent where they are. They were still trying to grow the country. We still have to grow the country. So, yeah.
Grow on. Let's go.
Grow
on. And I think it's so good too, the fact that so many people are now really taking time to learn about American history more than just what they were offered in the classroom. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, think about at first, I actually had to go back and reread and do a little bit more research about the Revolutionary War, about the Boston Tea Party, about King George and his mental, where he was at, about Alexander Hamilton, about the founding fathers. And so it is a great history lesson. And I love that it is also encouraging people and calling people and inspiring people to, you know, read up some more about history and find out what is accurate and what is not accurate. And I'm gonna be honest, one of the first things I did was look up the entanglement between Angelica and Alexander. And there are, I don't know what y'all have found or if y'all researched that. But some people are saying that they actually didn't have a relationship and that they were just really good pen pals. And then there's speculation that they, you know, did have a little entanglement going on. But regardless, I just love that it is inspiring people to just educate themselves even more on history or refresh themselves on that history.
I hope this is also like a call to teach more in-depth history in history classes because we get such the surface. Context is missing from so much of the history that we're taught, especially in high school at a time when we're not interested in it at all. So we just get really like just the names and that's it. But I really hope, like I think Anna Grace said at the beginning, if most classes could show this and teach and inspire their students that there's a lot of history, there's a lot of really interesting stuff here that we could expand on and really teach the context and the depth of history of understanding the times, the people, the hypocrisy, the conflicting values that everybody has. I think that it would help students be more interested in really learning that it's very complicated. History is very complicated. It's not simple at all. And so I hope that it at least leads to that.
Ooh, I love that you said that because I think a lot of times, especially now, people are like, if you don't agree with my idea, you are wrong. Ooh, sorry, y'all. If you don't agree with my idea, you're wrong. It's like black and white, wrong and right. And some things are just wrong and right. Racism is wrong, period. But I also think that it shows that it's important to know your history, know that it is complicated. But also, if you don't know your history, then you're going to repeat it. Isn't there a saying out there like that? Like, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it or something like that.
To repeat itself. Yeah.
If nobody else has anything else, I guess we'll wrap up. I know we got stuff to do. Guys, appreciate you doing this early in the morning here.
My last request is that this not be the last play that Lin-Manuel Miranda writes about American history. I hope the next one he focuses on Thomas Jefferson and his relationship with Sally Hemings. I hope after that it's George Washington. I really hope that I don't know, he's not talked about this, but we need more people like him that are willing to tell these stories and really put them out there for people.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah. Everybody, before we go, Something that we do on our like Friday show for the nerds when we do like our press play, we kind of talk about what's been getting us through the week or through the month or whatever. So I kind of just want to go, I'm going to hit everybody up and just say, what's been getting you through, like through the coronavirus? How are you dealing with it? How are you coping? So I'm going to start with the person I see first, Lauren. So what have you been doing, or what activity have you partaken in to get through this?
I've been creating, man. I've been writing, creating music, just enjoying music in a different way than I did before, and also reading. And then I found out that one of my favorite books, Kindred by Octavia Butler, they have a graphic novel adaptation of it, and I just got it yesterday. So I'm about to dive into this because I wanted to see this as a movie ever since I read the book. And knowing that there was a graphic novel version, I know Leroy's gonna be proud of me for picking this up. I did go on Amazon, but that's been getting me through the coronavirus.
Alicia?
I just think conversations like this with you all, getting a glimpse of the people, who I care about deeply, on, whenever we can, and seeing just a couple of people, can't see too many people, but just enjoying fellowship with people like you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whitney?
I agree with Alicia. Something that's been so important for me is being able to have conversations, especially even having some tough conversations about things that are going on, about race relations, about things with this virus, but having tough conversations with people that you love. But also just being around people that you love, fellowshipping in a safe 6 feet away mask type situation, doing that. I've been meditating a lot, praying a lot, and honestly, the biggest thing is just being grateful. I am counting my blessings and having an attitude of gratitude. That is so important because we are so blessed, and so. Yeah, I've been doing that. Also, shout out to Lauren because her music is fire.
Where is this? Drop a link, please.
I haven't officially put it out yet. So for those that have heard,
Lauren dropping some stuff. Yeah.
I'm jealous. I need to hear it.
Anna Grace, what about you? How are you getting through this?
Well, I have been reading a lot. I used to read a lot in like middle school and high school, and then college hit, and I was like, reading for fun, what is that? So now I love like YA fantasy. That's just like that's my jams. I've been reading a lot. I bought many books, too many to say, because I spent a lot of money on books. Anyways, I've been at my parents' house, which has been great because free food and stuff. And it's just been being around family is important because my sister's pregnant, so getting to be around her, and just buying all the clothes and stuff. So we're really excited. But yeah, I just think family's been important because me and my family are super close. So I just think it's just a great time. Like, I think it was just like just in time. I needed this because I wouldn't get to be at home for 2 months straight on a normal schedule life without coronavirus. So it's been great being home, but yeah, just with my family, that's been important and helpful.
Moving to Mary and Sean.
Well, aside from like normal house, like yard stuff, I have this newfound interest in supporting local businesses and like really not just like blanket local, like really looking at who owns them and really making a conscious decision that I want these people I want to help their livelihood. I want to help them stick around for a while. I want this business to be in this community for a while. And that's something that I never thought. I thought, I care, but now I have a newfound interest in it, and it's really interesting. And just reading articles and a lot more reading.
For me, I did a lot of yard work.
Yeah.
I'm judging everybody with a bad-looking yard at this point. And also, I downloaded Red Dead Redemption in like November. I didn't have a chance to play it until March, but it's been pretty sweet.
Where are you in that game right now?
I'm like 70% through the game. I'm in chapter 6 right now.
Has Arthur done his transformation yet to be? I don't want to spoil it, but is he?
I got the disease that you're talking.
Okay.
about.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Brandon, what about you?
I obviously need to get my life together because I've been eating a lot. I have really let myself go. I've been snacking. But for me, I guess, like Anna Grace said, family. You know, I moved back to Columbia to spend time with my family because I realized how important family was. But being able to see my grandmother on a regular basis and being able to run errands for her and do things for her has really meant a lot to me. And being able to have conversations with her and to talk to her about what's going on in the world and how, you know, she's never seen, you know, something like this before or the unrest like this before. So just having that quality family time and eating a lot of cheesecake has really, it's gotten me through. It helps. It's okay.
For me, what's been getting me through is I kind of been on a musical kick, and now I'm watching a lot more Bollywood movies. There's a large selection of Bollywood movies on Netflix, and I would recommend, like, if you're interested in musical theater, I would probably recommend just trying out a Bollywood movie because it combines musicals with the action set pieces of like a Fast and Furious or a Marvel movie. It's ridiculous and over the top, but they're fun. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Nice.
So yeah. So that's it for us. Thank you guys again for being here. You can always find us here on YouTube. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wotx.com. Hit the like, comment, subscribe button somewhere, wherever it appears on your YouTube page. I don't know. Hit the little bell, all that stuff, and we're out.